So Unsane, Steven Soderbergh's new joint. Steven Soderbergh has a new joint, it seems like, every other week. It seems like. I thought he was retired, but then, Logan Lucky and Unsane and all the television work he's been doing. And by the time you watch this, there'll probably be another Steven Soderbergh movie that'll come out, Behind the Candelabra, really all great movies, interesting movies. Unsane is like a psychological thriller. First of all, the title Unsane for me will always be the American title of Dario Argento's Tenebrae. I mean, that to me is when I saw the title Unsane, it's like my mind went to Tenebrae. And I have this thing where I'm angry, and it's this totally illogical thing where I feel like, no, the first movie is Unsane. You can't take that title and make it into your new movie. Like, there was this movie, Deep Red. It was like this Sci-Fi Channel TV movie. And this happens to a lot of Dario Argento movies. It was just random movie. I never even really fully watched the movie because I was so angry that somebody would steal the title Deep Red. No. Deep Red is a Dario Argento movie. It's not that movie. It's Deep Red. Anyway, that's getting off the point. Unsane, a psychological thriller told, captured from the innovative perspective of shooting the film with an iPhone, shooting the film with a couple iPhone 7s, and then some other shots were actually shot with a DSLR and some other high-end digital cameras, but for the most part, shot completely with an iPhone with some lens replacements and everything. A psychological thriller about a young woman who moves to a new city to escape a stalker. She finds herself involuntarily committed to a hospital, where her stalker could also be with her as a nurse. Is she or isn't she? And so it's is she insane? Is she not? I love that tagline. Is she or isn't she? So it's a psychological thriller. It's a twisty thriller with, of course, some leaps of logic and some things where, in most psychological thrillers, there's some things that don't quite add up. There's some MacGuffins. There's some things which, from a legal, realistic perspective, probably could not happen in real life, but you go with it. And the film really has like a nice kind of 60s, 70s flair. Steven Soderbergh loves the new wave filmmakers. He loves the European filmmakers, John Borman, the French New Wave, and 70s New Hollywood. And even the beginning of the film with the title font Unsane, it's in this kind of, retro title font. And the film, for being shot, with an iPhone, it's very, shot in this traditional way in a weird aspect ratio with some black bars. It's like 1:60:1 or something. I don't know. It's in a weird. I don't know the exact aspect ratio. I was just talking out of my head, but it's in a weird aspect ratio as well. I don't know. Maybe lending itself to the iPhone shooting. And shot very traditionally for something that's shot with this new camera. Lots of static shots. Lots of in the behind the scenes you see him shooting with a gimbal stabilizer. Being wheeled around on a wheelchair. That's how they got a lot of the smooth shots, I think. Wow, interesting. A lot of running around in the hospital at night. I mean, there's been a lot of women in the hospital in peril films. Well, maybe not a lot. There's been a few I can think off the top of my head. Hospital Massacre. That was a movie with Barbie Benton that is nothing like Unsane, but it still reminds me of that. And there was The End of Halloween 2. The End of Halloween 2, where, Jamie Lee Curtis is limping around the hospital. It also reminded me of when one time I got hit by a car and I was at a hospital late at night. And they put me in a room, and I was just sitting there for like about 40 minutes. I'm like, nobody's coming to see me here. I'm just in a room, and I hopped out of the hospital room. Very much like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 2. I just kind of hopped out, and it was like empty. It was this hospital at night. in the middle of a big town, and I hopped out. Also, because the lead character gets committed so easily, it reminded me of that study from a number of years ago. There was this research study which was trying to research the rather low bar that psychiatric health professionals have for deeming people to be mentally disturbed. They brought people, they brought these kind of imposters, and they put them in hospitals all across the country, and they were pretending to have mental health issues. And meanwhile, they got committed, and they kept saying, "Hey, we're not disturbed. We don't have health issues. We were just pretending because of the study." And they wouldn't let them out. They're like, "My God, these mental patients they would write notes to themselves," and they were like, "Oh my God, this mental patient is writing notes." And there was this great Adam Curtis documentary about the whole thing from a few years ago. And a lot of these people, they had to pretend that they were getting better in order to actually be released from these hospitals. And this is something, a real life thing that a lot of psychiatric health professionals actually would kind of rather forget, I think. But there's a great Adam Curtis documentary where there's a part of the documentary on this whole thing, and then there was a whole thing where they said that they had, they pretended to run another study, and all these hospitals were aware of what was going on, and it was actually a fake study. There was no imposters, but the hospitals had pinpointed some people that they thought might be actually imposters, but they weren't. They were actually real patients then. But Unsane is overall a good movie. I mean, Claire Foy, I'm not a fan of the British television, so I hadn't really seen her in anything. But I mean, she comes out, great performance. The stalker is played by this guy Josh Leonard, who is an actor who's been working for years and years and years. But I think most people may still know him primarily from the Blair Witch Project, and really he's quietly become one of the most successful people to come out of the Blair Witch Project. And he plays a stalker incredibly. He's an incredibly creepy performance as the stalker. I don't see a lot of people talking about him in the film, but he is just a king creep as the stalker. And he's such a polite stalker. He's such a nice, polite stalker. I don't know, I mean, I think the presence of Claire Foy and this polite stalker, it feels like this movie would do very well in Great Britain, because it's away from, the American hospital system and the healthcare system. So maybe if you were watching this in the UK, you wouldn't quite know everything. So you can kind of squint and, okay, that kind of makes sense, and then you've got this Claire Foy, and then you've got this Josh Leonard. I don't know. It seems like it would be a nice British film, and then also Steven Soderbergh with his European British art house sensibilities. Maybe this may have gone over well in. I don't know. I'm just rambling now at this point. A good film, a good-looking film too, shot with the iPhone, and I think the presence of the iPhone comes in with the use of the very wide shots, because the iPhone lenses are inherently very wide angles, and that was one of the complaints I think Soderbergh has, is that it was difficult to get macro shots, very difficult to get telephotos. It was very wide. And I think the presence of the wide shots. I read a review from The Verge where it talked about how ugly the movie looked, and I mean, of course, it's contrasty, but to me it looks. I mean, it's full. It's what Steven Soderbergh likes to do with shooting films, which is shoot under fluorescence, shoot with just like naked light, shoot with its very contrasting. So I think that's just his style. I mean, if he was shooting with a red or with a more high-end camera, it would still probably look very similar to what it looks. I think the main limitations were in the lenses more than the way, the look of the camera, and the way that the sensor recorded everything. but a good movie. I mean, I really, I got off on it. I mean, if you can, kind of get past some of the ridiculousness of it, which is present in maybe all thrillers to an extent. Yeah, an interesting film that, I enjoyed.